something like this, you got to figure out what to do with the stuff that comes out of the motor. Otherwise, you'll wind up wearing it, getting it all over your car, getting all over it, whatever it is you're trying to work on. You have to think about, okay, where am I going to put my old oil? For me, there's a variety of things I can use old oil for. Sometimes just for lubrication, you know, in one of those little squirt oil gun things, you know, that you get. Sometimes, rather than spend, I don't know what you had to buy. You know, if you buy a bottle of like a squirt can, one of them pressurized squirt cans of oil in a hardware store, I don't know what that'd run you, many dollars, but you can do this instead and get you one of them little pump squirt cans and put your oil in that. And then what I do is I just set it around back, then later on when I get ready for some oil, I just pull some out. I have some. Now I am finding, I believe I saw a broken piston ring in here, which I wasn't expecting to see. Nope, that's not a piston ring. That's a, it's a remain seal. Okay, so not a piston ring. Well, that's good, because I was thinking if it was a piston ring, man, it would have wrecked a cylinder. Right? Yeah, it would have. That's good. It's not a piston ring, actually. Okay, let's put this back under here, and I'll get me another bucket to put some of that in. Of course, my little lifters are falling out. I didn't pull them out when I took the head off, so that's normal. So I'm going to start taking, next time I'm going to start taking the pistons out, and I need a bucket to put this in. So I think I'm going to start from the back, taking the pistons out one at a time. This is metal. All of this came out of that oil. If you look down in there and you look what's on my finger, those are little pieces of metal. That's, I want to say it's not a good sign, but I mean it's a good sign in that I know I'm going to find my problem here pretty soon. Not a good sign for whatever that metal came from. Probably that's eaten up one of the piston rod bearings. Probably. It'll give me another jug to put some of that oil in. I believe, I don't know which one of these rods were bent, but as I look at the bottoms of them, that doesn't have anything on it, and that doesn't. But this one rod right here clearly is different. You can see the number 5, or at least some kind of a mark. You can see some kind of a mark. I believe that is a different rod than these rods. This is most likely the rod that's been changed, and it's also, I'm guessing, most likely the rod is giving us trouble now. So I'm going to pull that one first. Okay, now keep in mind this was a new bearing. Well, I mean, y'all just about seen how much I've driven this car. I think I drove it over to Calhoun Falls once, and I drove it over to the state park a few times. That's a rough surface there. See that coloration and that mark there? And I can feel right here. I can feel that roughness right there. I'm going to push this piston out. I don't think I can turn this one by hand yet. It's not loose enough for that. We'll turn this around until we get that down low. So here's the bearing that was on that one. And you see how golden. These things are made out of brass. And then they have a little light coat of aluminum. Probably a kind of a composite. But as they wear, they turn gold like that. See, that's worn that first cover layer off of this. So that's probably my trouble right there. I'm gonna put that piston and that piston rod together. And, keep track of that one. And then we'll just pull the rest of them out and take a look at all of them, because I'm thinking I'm gonna have to change the crankshaft anyway. And as much metal, as much metal as I found down in that motor, I expect to see a lot more damage than this. So somewhere something's gone a lot worse than just this, I do believe. So let's stick these two back together and we'll set them aside. And pull out the next one. Some wear on it too. Not as bad as that first one though. The bearing doesn't feel like it fits in there very snug like it should. So I'm going to want to start numbering these. Numbering these, so I can tell which ones came out of which hole. Now let's take a look at this one here. I believe this is what you would call a spun bearing. This bearing is still attached to the crankshaft after I've removed the piston. And I believe that bearing has welded itself. And I shouldn't say welded because it's aluminum and steel, but it's gotten so hot that that bearing is stuck to the crankshaft. And it's been turning inside the piston. That's where that noise has been coming from. And that's probably where most of that metal came from that's down in there. I'll take this other piston off and then we'll have a look at that journal a little bit more. And I think that's going to be the problem, the biggest part of the problem, I believe, right there. Okay, this is that same journal, and this one is the same. If you notice, there's actually two bearings on this journal, and see, this journal got so hot. If one side or the other started to spin, it would have heated up the whole thing. That heat would have glued this bearing and that crankshaft journal together. And then it started spinning inside the piston. That's why you heard that squeaking noise. That's what that squeaking noise was. Which is, we had an old Chrysler when I was a kid. We were on vacation going down to Florida. And that thing started squealing like this one did. Except we was on the interstate doing about 70. And then shortly after that, it quit running. We wound up having it towed down to a friend of ours' garage, and a guy came out and had to turn that bearing. He turned that bearing in the car using an emery cloth and a special starter that would spin that motor over. And yeah, that was interesting. Interesting thing to get to see as a kid. Anyway, I'll get that other piston out. We'll take a closer look at what the crankshaft looks like.